Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at Etrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Timbren rear spacer kit for the rear suspension enhancement on a 2022 Toyota Tundra. Now these are going to be a great addition if you've lifted your truck, have aftermarket suspension, or you want your Timbrens to engage quicker and reducing the amount of sag that your truck has while under load. If you've added Timbrens to your Tundra or you're planning on adding Timbrens, something that you're going to want to consider is closing up the gap that this still has. Now the factory Jounce bumper, it's kind of laughable at how much of a gap it takes for it to close down and finally bottom out, and that's going to really translate to a truck that sags quite a bit, and the Timbrens do a really good job of reducing that, and that's going to give you a ton of different benefits across the board, whether it be handling, sway control, having better steering feel, better braking, and overall just less wear and tear on your suspension. So adding these spacers allows you to even close that gap up even more to reduce that sway. It's going to get these to engage a lot faster. And with this kit, you actually have two different options, well, three different options, because you can use the 1-inch spacer, the 1/2-inch spacer, or both of them. And that's where you can refer to the instruction manual. Light duty trucks, they do say that you can get away with just the 1-inch spacer. Medium duty trucks, you can use both of them, or heavy duty trucks, you can also use both. And that's where the Tundra falls into an interesting category, because I look at the Tundra as a truck that's not a 3/4 ton, but it does seem a little bit beefier than your typical 1/2 ton. So that's where having a medium duty truck, and this one is definitely doing some work. They have their ball mount on here that's definitely been used, so it's used to seeing a lot of weight, and that's where we're going to close that gap up by using both of these. So whether you already have your Timbrens installed or you're installing them now in conjunction with these, I'll show you how to get them in place. So if you have your factory ones on, we'll go ahead and take those down and we'll get these installed. Now if you're taking off your existing ones to add this on, you're just going to separate this. It's just going to be 17mm sockets on both ends here. And if you're installing this for the first time and you want to put these on immediately, now's a great time. So first we're going to take out the bolt. And there's going to be a washer that stays inside of here. So make sure that stays in place. We're going to be passing in a bolt. We're also going to need the small flat washer that's going to go on top. And then there's also going to be a nylon lock nut. Now depending on which spacer you're going to be using, you will have different bolts included in the kit. So it just kind of goes along with which spacer. Since we're going to be using both, we're going to grab the long shoulder bolt here, the longest one, and we'll just take our spacers and we're going to pass our bolt through here. And what might help here is if you take just a standard 17 with an extension, that's going to kind of hold that in place for us. We'll then take our top bracket. We'll take our flat washer, and these can get a little bit tricky, so if you need a pair of needle nose to kind of get that started on the stud, you can go ahead and do that. And then same thing with the nylon lock nut. We just need to kind of get this in place to get a few threads started by hand. It's pretty tight here, so if you have small hands, it's actually going to work in your benefit here, but if not, you can use a socket. And what I recommend sometimes to make it a little bit easier, just grab a small paper towel here and put that on top of your socket, and then when you put your nylon lock nut in there, it's just going to kind of hold that in place, and that way it's not moving around or dropping out of the socket as you lower it on. Go ahead. And then we'll just start this. Start slow, make sure it threads on properly. We don't want to cross thread this. And then once you have that started, there is a torque setting associated with these, so I'm going to swap over to my torque wrench so we can get this properly torqued down. Now you probably don't need to have a socket on the back end on your torque wrench, but just dial your torque wrench into the torque setting found in the instruction manual. It does look like ours is spinning, so I'm just going to put my socket on here just to kind of hold that in place. And then we'll get this torqued down properly. Now with this added height from where it was originally without the spacers, You may run into an issue of it being too tight to slide this back into place. Ours is actually working out pretty well here. But what you can do to get around that is put a floor jack on your hitch and just raise it up a little bit, and that's going to raise the frame up and get the suspension to be unsprung, allowing you to get this in place. So that's what we're going to do here. These are slightly slotted, so don't completely tighten these down. We're just going to put these in by hand. And if you are installing this for the first time, these are a 12 millimeter socket to get these tightened back up. And we just have the 3 of them here. So now, once we have those tightened in by hand, we'll just take our 12 millimeter socket. And I did mention they're slotted, not a whole lot, but it's a good chance to just make sure that it's placed exactly or as close to center as possible on this strike plate. You don't want it having off kilter and having it hang over a little bit. So in our case here, I'm going to slide this one back, and then I'm just going to get these all tightened down. So once you tighten that down, you're just going to repeat the same steps on the other side of the truck, and then all that's left to do is take your truck out and notice the reduction in sag and enjoy the drive. And that was a look and installation of the Timbren rear spacer kit on a 2022 Toyota Tundra.